Today, from Mexico, we have shrimp El Diablo, devil's shrimp. Last week we had the controversy of the origin over General Tso's chicken. Today we have the questions about the name of this dish. More about that later. Plus, we will have this on the table for you in under 30 minutes, and we will even discuss ways to cut that time in half or more. There's a lot to cover, so let's get started. So for today's dish, we're going to use frozen shrimp. Now, before anybody says, oh no, frozen shrimp, in reality, unless you live right next to the ocean or where they actually harvest shrimp, frozen shrimp is as fresh as you're going to get. Even what you buy at the supermarket is not as fresh because it's been frozen and thawed, and now it's sitting there waiting for you to buy it. The bad thing about the frozen shrimp is it does have a lot of water once you thaw it. So we've put it in a colander here to drain the water. We're going to put a little salt on top of it, stir that around, and then let that sit. You can sit on the counter because we're only going to be about 10 minutes or so. Or if you're more comfortable, you can put it back in the refrigerator. So when it comes to prepping vegetables, sometimes I don't know my own strength. Okay, watch that again. The bad news is it flew right into the sink and down into the garbage disposal. So we have about 7 cloves of garlic here we're going to chop up. We're going to make a fresh tomato sauce, but you don't have to do that. We'll get into that a little later. I prefer mise en place, which is a fancy French term for getting everything in its place. So I prefer to prep everything in advance so it's all ready when I need it. Similar to what you have to do if you're doing a stir fry. Another purely optional item is green bell pepper. We use it here to add a little extra sweetness to the sauce. Once again, you can dice this up into pieces as large or as small as you like. Onion as well is used for sweetness in the sauce. I happen to have red onion on hand, so I use that, which happens to be a little extra sweet. From watching, I believe it was America's Test Kitchen one day, I learned this technique for dicing onion. Rather than having to make those slices back toward yourself to dice the onion, if you quarter the onion, make your vertical slices like this, then turn the onion 90 degrees and cut straight down, you'll end up with perfect dice. You don't have to worry about cutting back toward your hand to make that extra cut. This is devil shrimp, so we will need some spice. So there's a serrano here we're going to slice up. So as with every dish that you cook at home, you control the spice level. So you can add more or less spice in this. We did use 1 serrano. If that's too hot for you, you can use a half a serrano, or you cut it in half and pull the seeds out. I'm a big fan of green onions. I like them not only for the taste, but also I put it on almost everything I make for garnish. At the end, it just adds a little bit of extra freshness. And of course, it would not be a Mexican dish without cilantro. So we just cut up a handful of cilantro here. The stems are really thin, so it's okay to use the stems in this. And then for a little added heat and a little smoky flavor, we will use 1 chipotle pepper. Just go ahead and chop that up and put that with the rest of your vegetables. Heat your oil up in a pan set at medium-high heat. Once your oil is hot, you can go ahead and add the onions, the garlic, the green peppers, and the serrano pepper. This would also be the time to add the chipotle pepper. Give everything a stir to make sure that everything is evenly coated with the oil and the chipotle is distributed evenly throughout. Let that cook for about a minute. Then after about a minute, you can add your spice mixture. The spice mixture is going to contain 1.5 tablespoons of cumin, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of New Mexico red chili, which isn't really spicy, it's there to add a little bit of additional depth, and 1 more half teaspoon of chipotle chili powder. This extra chipotle is added for a little additional heat as well as a smoky flavor in the background. Stir this around and allow it to cook for 1 minute. You don't want to overcook it because the spices can burn. After the spices have toasted for about a minute, you can add 2 cups of tomato sauce. I use crushed tomatoes here. You can use tomato sauce. You can use tomato puree, whatever you prefer and whatever you have on hand. I'd also like to add 1 cup of water to this. Give that a stir and let it cook for about 30 seconds or so, and then you can add some additional heat with some red pepper flakes. Again, all of this heat is optional. It's as much as you would like or can handle. I just like the varying levels of heat and the way the heat kind of builds throughout this dish. The first of the time-saving measures that I mentioned earlier, you can skip everything we've done to this point, save yourself approximately 10 to 12 minutes, and just use a can of jarred sauce. I would still recommend toasting the spices if you can. In that case, I would use a dry skillet, toast it for about 30 seconds. Then just add your favorite jarred canned tomato sauce and allow it to cook for a couple of minutes. And so your 30-minute meal now becomes about 20 minutes. And in a couple minutes, I'll give you one more way to speed up this process. Now you're going to let this cook for 2 to 3 minutes uncovered. While we have a couple minutes here, let's discuss the name of this dish. The name of this dish is Camarones el Diablo, which translates into devil shrimp. Now, I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I do know, as they say, enough to be dangerous. The article used before male nouns is el, E-L. Throughout history, the devil has always been referred to as a male. So shrimp el Diablo makes perfect sense. But I've seen this dish written and described many times as shrimp a la diabla. And the A at the end of diabla and the la before the diabla indicates the feminine. So that would translate to shrimp of the devil woman. And although there are many men, and I'm sure a lot of women out there that would say that the devil is female, which is a whole nother topic for a whole different kind of show. As I said, throughout history, the devil has always been referred to as a male. So I don't know, maybe I'm making something out of nothing, but I am confused. No matter what you want to call it, whether you want to refer to it in the feminine or the masculine, this dish is delicious. After these couple of minutes, your sauce should have come to a boil. When you reach that stage, turn it down to a simmer, cover it, and let it cook for another 5 minutes or so. After 5 minutes, you can add your shrimp. I'm going to cook the shrimp 5 minutes here. It's a medium shrimp, and I've cooked this before, so I know how long it takes to cook, and 5 minutes will be perfect. But here's another way to save those 5 minutes. Whether you're making homemade sauce or whether you're using jarred sauce, while that is cooking and warming up, you can cook your shrimp in a separate pan until they're 75 or 80% cooked, and then just add them to your sauce just to warm through and finish cooking. Regardless of how you choose to cook it, just please make sure you do not overcook the shrimp. Of course, if you're using larger shrimp, it would take a couple more minutes to cook in the sauce. After 5 minutes, you can put in about 3/4 of the cilantro, turn off the heat and stir that around. And now that you've cooked it, it's time to serve it, eat it, and enjoy it. Thank you for watching today, and check out these other videos.